Hello viewer, Timu Jack Quaid here. Today we're going to go through some more of the video game that I've been working on. Specifically the Gore system and some of the animation too. So before we get into that, I just wanted to say thank you for the traction on the last video. Some of those comments were very insightful and allowed me to think a bit more outside the box on how I would fix some of these vertex issues and vertex shader issues and some of these decal issues that I've been experiencing. So thanks again for that. So let's jump straight into it. So first we'll touch on the animations. So as he put a collision sphere on his head, so as he's getting close to you, once the character overlaps that collision sphere, he opens his mouth and starts running at you with his mouth open, like a big fly trap, like this. See if I can do it again. Yeah, so, and then he has another collision sphere attached to his head that's a bit smaller, and when he's making contact with you, he begins taking chunks out of you, snapping and biting you like that. I think it's pretty convincing. I think it's got that sort of feral animalistic vibe where he's just trying to take chunks out of you. Obviously, when we've got the sound effects and the screen effects done, and the health system done on the character, it should be much more immersive, especially at night. But as you can see, he's sprinting and taking chunks out of you. This is all procedurally animated. There's no baked-in animations, and there's no animation blending or anything like that. It's just purely maths based on velocity and sine waves. I think it looks pretty decent. So the second thing I want to talk about is the Gore system. So I've modeled a skeleton for this teeth character that I've been working on. This model is inside the flesh mesh. So there's a skeleton mesh and not a skeletal mesh, a skeleton mesh and a flesh mesh. And outside is the flesh mesh. And when you're shooting him, it slowly exposes the skeleton mesh underneath, as you can see here. And get some ribs out like that. And I think the effect works. I think it was quite difficult to make sure that the skeleton mesh didn't protrude outside the bounds of the flesh mesh, because it looked a bit weird, especially when I first made it. When I first made the skeleton, these hip bones here, these pelvis bones, were much longer at the top. And when he had his head down and he was running at you or turning or anything like that, his pelvic bones were sticking out of his skin and it looked like rubbish. So after much dicking around and much sort of fine-tuning this skeleton to fit within the mesh, not only statically, but under animation, after all that, I managed to get something, that's reasonably acceptable for, I guess, an MVP. But as you can see, his ribs and his scapula and all this stuff is fully exposed. Let me get him in the light. When I shoot him, so his flesh sort of hangs off of him, like if I shoot him in the hand. I think it's a cool effect. So you can pretty much completely deglove the mesh off of the skeleton. Yeah, until he dies. Another thing I wanted to talk about is some of the tweaks that I've done to the Deformer mesh and the hit points and how they work, right? So originally, when I shoot a shot into the physics object of the flesh mesh, it takes that hit point in world space, and then I have to inverse the transform to make sure it's in component space. So it's in the character space, right? So that's fine if you have a static mesh, because the deformer mesh works on the reference pose of the mesh, of the flesh mesh in this case. So what this means is it's using its pre-animation reference pose, not its animated reference pose. So it's not the current bone or not the current position that it's using. We need to get that current position and then offset it to where it needs to be on the deformer graph, which again uses the reference pose or the reference mesh, not the animated mesh. So I was having this issue where I was like running around the map and it just wasn't looking right. I'm running around the map shooting this thing, and the bullets didn't seem to register on the mesh where I was hitting. And it was really, I was like, why the hell is this working? Why the hell isn't this working? And then it sort of came to me that the deformer graph has no animation info, right? So it doesn't, it only knows where that hit is in its own reference component space. It doesn't know where that hit is in animation space. So what I had to do was map all of the bones as a reference in the construction graph or the construction function for the character. Map all of the bones and set them to an array with like it's called a map, right? So you have your name and then the name of the bone and then the transform of that bone in component space. It has to be in component space because you don't want to be inverting and then changing the locations different times at different places. It's just like it feels like bad principle to do that. So in component space, I'm running a for each loop on the bones, making sure I'm getting all the coordinates of each bone and all the rotations and all that. And then what I'm saying in the hit in the deformer is, so let me give it a live example. So let me see if I can get his mouth open. Okay, so his mouth is open like this, right? When I shoot up here, well, now it's working, right? But before, when I shot up there, it wasn't registering because technically his mouth is down here in the reference pose. So what I had to do is get in the component space where that hit was and then offset it to the reference pose. So if I shoot him up here, I need to see which bone that is, which position it is currently, and then offset that from the reference, subtract that offset, and then place the hit impulse exactly where it's supposed to be on the deformer graph reference. And it was an absolute, like, it took me, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours just to figure out how I'm going to get this offset. But in the end, I ended up getting it, and now when we're running around and I'm shooting him, all the hits are registering properly. I think you might be able to see that. Hopefully the bit rate isn't getting destroyed. But you can see now the hits are registering, and I'm just taking chunks off him as he's running around. Exactly where I shot, which is bloody hallelujah, it works. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the critical. So as you can see, now by the health bar at the bottom, he's below 25% health. So now he goes into this like Super Saiyan critical mode. And this means he, like, I don't know what he's going to do with his damage, but he hit, he could hit twice as hard or something like that. He's twice as fast, something like that. But also, when he's running towards you, he now opens his mouth and exposes that eyeball in his eye. And that eyeball does double damage. So as you can see, top left, there's it says critical, and that is doing double damage. So the theory is, it's just to raise the stakes at the end of the round, right? If you're fighting this boss and it's, you guys are getting, you're getting absolutely slaughtered by this thing, well, at the end of the round, it's going to be even harder. But it might wind things up quicker because you do you have the opportunity to do double damage, but this thing's going to be much more powerful. That was just a theory I'm working with. Just let me know in the comments what you guys think about that. Let me get him back down to critical. I'll show you some more of his bone. So he's got his scapula, yeah, I'll show you actually here. So here's his skeleton. I'll give you a quick tour. Bit of pelvis. I based this off Velociraptor fossils. It's not, obviously it's not accurate, but you know, it's based off a real Velociraptor skeleton. And then here's his flesh. So he's got, you know, he's got his mouth and his scales, which are nice and doing the UV wrapping for that was a bit of a nightmare. Same with this. It took a lot of time to get all the UV wrapping for each, all the marks, what are they called? The seams all done. Mark seams. Same as this, but I think it's looking half decent. And then in the procedural, you can see it's all worked together. But let me get him down to critical again. Not just going to show you more of this. Get his legs this time. So you can see it's all. So now that that eyeball is in his mouth, I'm going to remesh this to be an actual eyeball, like a blinking eyeball, and this eyeball is going to be tracking you. So wherever you're going, it's going to be looking at whoever it's targeting, and whoever, you know, it's going to be blinking and obviously reacting to being shot. So this is this little hidey weak spot, but for now I'm just showing you as an example. This is sort of what it's going to look like. I think I'm going to do I'm going to do some trails on him, maybe some like smoke or something's coming off of him, make him look a bit more dramatic while he's in his critical stage, but I don't know, we'll see how it goes. I do have some other ideas of how I'm going to, of different monsters, like a Wendigo, and you know, some different wraiths to start modeling. But I just want to get three monsters that look appealing and they're, you know, satisfying to shoot and, you know, be chased by. And then, yeah, I think I'll crack on with the hand placement. So the model's done for that. I just need to re-rig it and make sure that, you know, the bones are all correct. And then I can start the inverse kinematics on the character, the first-person character. So the hands will be placed, the shoulders will be in place. So you'll not only will it won't just be a static movement like this. If he moves his shoulders, you're going to see his arm flex. It's going to be nice and dynamic. So let's hope to God I figure out how to do that. But that's the theory. That's the working idea. But yeah, thank you for watching.